Hey, glad you found your way back. It's late, the world's quieted down, and we're about to slip into a time when winter didn't end. You'll hear things tonight. The creak of ice settling, a soft crush of snow under wrapped feet, maybe the distant crack of something massive moving through frozen darkness. Smell wood smoke, but not the kind you know. This is bone burning, marrow fat hissing in flame, animal hide curing in cold air that turns every breath into a visible thing. Just a reminder, in this century, you're basically a walking snack for animals that outweigh you by several tons. Be glad you're under a duvet and not squatting in a hide shelter while something with tusks wanders past outside. Before your eyelids get too heavy, if this actually works for you, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more of these late-night journeys. Otherwise, just settle in and enjoy where we're headed. And hey, drop your sleep station in the comments, where you are right now and what time it is there. I'm curious where these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Cold on your face. That's the first thing. Cold so sharp it pulls you from sleep before you've decided to wake. Your eyes open to darkness that's not quite complete. Somewhere above, through the smoke hole, stars prick through like ice chips. The fire's down to embers, glowing red-orange in a ring of stones, and someone, maybe your father, maybe your uncle, is already awake, feeding it carefully. Small sticks first, kindling that catches fast. The flames lick upward, and light spreads across the shelter walls. Hides stretched over a framework of bone and wood, everything sewn and lashed and stacked against the cold, pressing in from all sides. Your breath comes out in clouds. Everyone's breath does. The shelter holds maybe 12 people, all bundled in furs, all exhaling fog that rises toward the smoke hole and vanishes. You can smell them, bodies that haven't bathed in weeks, maybe months. Sweat and smoke and the fatty animal smell of the hides you sleep under. It's not pleasant, exactly, but it's warm, it's alive. Outside, the temperatures drop to something that'll kill you in minutes if you're not prepared. You shift under your sleeping fur, reindeer, thick and insulating, and feel the ground beneath you. It's layered, grass, then hides, then more grass. Keeps the cold from seeping up through the earth and into your bones. Someone showed you how to do this when you were small, back when you didn't understand that cold rises from below just as much as it falls from above. Now you know. Winter's taught you. The person tending the fire glances over, doesn't say anything, just nods. You nod back. There's a rhythm to waking in winter, quiet, careful, conserving energy until you've eaten something and the sun's up. If the sun comes up. Sometimes the sky stays grey for days, low and heavy, and you lose track of whether it's dawn or just another shade of dim. You sit up slowly, your body's stiff from sleeping curled tight, knees to chest, preserving heat. Everyone sleeps that way. Stretching out is a summer luxury. Around you, others are stirring, children pressed against their mothers, an old woman coughing softly into her hand, a young man checking the weapons stacked near the entrance. Spears, mostly. Long shafts tipped with carefully shaped stone, hafted and bound with sinew that shrinks as it dries, holding everything tight. He's checking the bindings, running his thumb along the edge of one point, sharp enough to shave with, if anyone bothered shaving. Someone passes you a strip of dried meat. You take it without speaking, start chewing. It's tough, almost leathery, and you have to work at it before it softens enough to swallow. Reindeer, probably, from a kill weeks ago. Dried over fire and smoke, it'll keep for months if stored right. Tastes like salt and smoke and something faintly gamey that you've never not known. You chew slowly, letting it wake your jaw, your stomach, your mind. The fire's built up now, proper flames dancing, and the temperature in the shelter edges from brutally cold to merely cold. You can see better. The walls are hung with tools, scrapers made from flint, bone awls, needles so fine you could sew a seam that wouldn't let wind through. Someone's moccasins sit near the fire, drying. They're reindeer hide, fur side in, sewn with careful stitches that overlap like scales. Get them wet and they freeze stiff as wood. Dry them too fast and they crack. There's an art to everything here, and the art is staying alive. Outside, something cracks, a sharp report like wood splitting, but deeper. Ice. The river's frozen solid, has been for months, and sometimes the ice settles, shifts, speaks. You hear it at night when you're trying to sleep, this groaning language of cold. Historians still argue whether Ice Age people feared the sounds of winter or simply accepted them as background noise, like traffic in a city. You think about that sometimes, what it means to fear something versus just living with it. Right now, you're doing both. Someone moves to the entrance, pushes aside the heavy hide that serves as a door. Light spills in, not sunlight, not yet, but the grey pre-dawn that means morning's coming. The cold rushes in with it, a physical thing, and everyone pulls their furs tighter. The person at the door is checking the sky, reading it the way you'd read a message. Clear means colder, but safer for travel. Clouded means snow coming, maybe a storm. You watch them stand there, silhouetted against the growing light, breath pouring from their mouth in steady streams. They turn back, let the hide fall. Clear, they say. Just the one word, but it means everything. Clear means you can hunt today. Clear means you can check the snares set yesterday in the willow scrub. Clear means moving, working, living instead of huddling and waiting. You reach for your outer layer, a long tunic made from reindeer hide, sewn with sinew thread, fitted close at the wrists and neck. Beneath it, you're already wearing an inner layer, fur side against your skin. The warmth traps between them, held close by the careful construction. Someone spent hours making this, stitching by lamplight, using a bone needle so fine it could pierce thick hide without splitting it. Eyed needles. Some historian dug one up from 30,000 years ago and marveled at the engineering. You just know it keeps you alive. Boots next. Wrapped and tied, layered with grass for insulation, the fur turned inward. Your feet have gone numb countless times, come back tingling and painful as blood returns. You've seen frostbite, black toes, lost fingers. So you're careful. You wrap everything twice, tie it 3 times. Around you, everyone's doing the same. Dressing is a ritual, slow and methodical, because rushing means missing something, and missing something means dying badly. The children watch the adults, learning. A small girl copies her mother's movements, wrapping her own feet with exaggerated care, her tongue poking out in concentration. Someone laughs, soft, brief. Laughter's different in winter, quieter, rationed almost. The fire's burning steady now, and someone's melting snow in a skin bag hung near the flames. Water. You'll drink before you leave. Fill your stomach with something warm. The snow takes forever to melt, yields barely any water, but it's what there is. In summer, you drank from streams, cold and clear and abundant. In winter, waters work. You stand, fully dressed now, and the weight of everything settles on you. The furs, the responsibility, the endless calculation of warmth versus mobility. Move too much, you sweat. Sweat in winter, you die. So you learn to move just enough, to pace yourself, to read your own body like you read the sky. The entrance hide lifts again. Someone steps out into the blue-grey dawn, then another, then you. The cold hits like a wall, takes your breath, makes your eyes water instantly. But you're dressed for it, layered and wrapped, and after the first shock, your body adjusts. Barely. You're standing in snow that reaches mid-calf, packed and crusted from weeks of cold. The sky overhead is lightning, pale, clear, hard as stone. Stars still visible in the west, fading slowly. To the east, a line of brightness where the sun will eventually climb. The camp spreads around you, several shelters dug partially into the earth, their roofs mounded with snow for extra insulation, smoke rising from each one in thin grey lines. Straight up, no wind. That's good. Wind cuts through everything. Someone's already at the cache pit, digging through snow to reach the food stored there. Meat, frozen solid, preserved by the cold that wants to kill you. It'll keep all winter like this, better than any preservation technique you'd invent for another 20,000 years. Nature's freezer, running constantly, never failing. Your father appears beside you, says nothing, hands you a spear. It's taller than you are, balanced, the point catching the early light. You take it, feel its familiar weight. This is how the day begins, wrapped against the cold, armed, ready to move through a world that's frozen solid. And somewhere out there, beyond the camp, beyond the visible horizon, animals are moving. They have to be, because if they're not, if the herds have shifted, if the hunting grounds are empty, winter stops being something you survive and becomes something you don't. You breathe out, watch the cloud form and dissipate. Then you start walking, following the others, boots squeaking in the dry snow. The eternal winter is awake, and so are you. The snow holds everything. Every step, every scrape, every moment an animal paused to breathe. It's all written there if you know how to look. You're learning, have been learning since you were old enough to walk, following the adults out into white emptiness, watching them crouch and study and read stories you couldn't yet see. Now you can see some of them, not all, not yet, but some. You're moving away from camp, following your father and two others, spears in hand, eyes down. The sun's up properly now, low and bright, making the snow glare so hard you have to squint. Everything's blue and white and painfully sharp. No clouds, no wind, just clarity that goes on forever. Distance is strange here. You can see for miles, but judging how far something actually is becomes guesswork. That dark smudge on the horizon, trees or rocks or animals? You won't know until you're closer. Your father stops, holds up one hand. Everyone stops. Absolute silence, except for your breath and the faint creak of snow settling somewhere far off. He's looking down at something, and you move up beside him carefully, trying not to disturb whatever he's found. Tracks. 4 of them, in a line. Each print is the size of your hand, maybe bigger, pressed deep into the snow with clear definition. You can see the pads, the claws, the slight drag where the animal's weight shifted. Your father crouches, studies them without touching. You crouch too, copying him, trying to see what he sees. Wolf, he says quietly. Just the word, nothing else. He doesn't need to explain. Wolves are competitors, predators, dangerous if cornered or hungry enough. They follow the same herds you do, take down the same prey. Sometimes you find their kills, stripped and scattered. Sometimes they find yours. He points at the tracks, traces the direction with one finger hovering just above the snow. North. The wolf was heading north, probably hours ago. The edges of the prints are sharp, not rounded by sun or wind, which means recently. But the sun's been up for maybe an hour, and there's no frost in the bottom of the tracks, which there would be if they were from last night. So, dawn, probably. Right around when you were waking up. You file this away. Wolf, solo, moving north at dawn. Could mean it's tracking something. Could mean it's just passing through. Either way, you're aware of it now, and awareness is survival. You move on. The landscape is deceptive. Looks flat, but it's not. There are subtle rises and falls, frozen streams hidden under snow, patches where the winds scoured everything down to bare earth and ice. You follow the others in a loose line, spacing yourselves so you don't all fall through if the ground betrays you. Thin ice over water will kill you faster than anything. Your father's teaching you to read direction too. Not just tracks, everything. The way snow drifts always tells you where the prevailing wind comes from. Trees, when you find them, grow bent and stunted, shaped by endless cold, and their branches point away from the wind. Even the texture of the snow speaks. Hard-packed and crusted means wind. Soft and deep means calm. You're building a vocabulary of winter, learning to translate what you see into what you need to know. An hour passes, maybe two. Time's hard to track when everything looks the same. Then, something different. A disturbance in the snow ahead, a wide area churned and broken. You approach carefully, weapons ready, though whatever happened here is clearly over. The snow's trampled in a rough circle maybe 20 feet across. Dark stains, blood, frozen into the white like rust. Tufts of fur caught on nothing, drifting. And bones. Ribs mostly, cracked and splintered, the marrow sucked out. Something died here, and something else fed well. Your father circles the site, reading it like a book you're still learning the alphabet of. He points to tracks, many tracks, overlapping, canine. Pack, he says. Then he points to different tracks, larger, cloven. Reindeer, young one. You piece it together. Wolves brought down a reindeer here, probably yesterday, worked together to separate it from the herd and drag it down. Fed until they were full, scattered what they didn't want. The reindeer's herd would have kept moving. They don't stop for the dead. Nature's cold that way, in winter especially. Stop moving, you freeze. Doesn't matter who you're leaving behind. One of the others prods the ribs with their spear, checking if there's anything worth taking. There's not. Wolves are efficient. They crack bones for marrow, strip cartilage, leave almost nothing. But the information's useful. There's a wolf pack working this territory, and there's a reindeer herd moving through. Both facts matter. You continue. The sun climbs, angles across the sky, offers no heat but plenty of light. You're watching the ground constantly now, looking for anything that breaks the pattern. And patterns are everything. Snow settles in predictable ways, and anything that disrupts that means something passed through. A slight depression, an animal bedded down for the night. A scattering of droppings, frozen solid, tells you what ate what and when. A scrape where something poured through snow to reach lichen beneath. Food source, probably reindeer again. Then you see them. Different tracks, huge. Each print is 3 times the size of your head, round, deep, sunk into the snow like someone pressed dinner plates into it. 5 toes, almost hand-like. A line of them stretching east to west, spaced far apart because whatever made them has a stride you couldn't match in 10 steps. Mammoth. Everyone stops. Your father's already crouching, examining, and you're right beside him, heart doing something complicated in your chest. Excitement? Fear? Respect? All of it, probably. Mammoths are everything. Food enough to feed your entire band for months. Fur for clothing, bones for shelter, ivory for tools. They're also massive, dangerous, and hard to kill. Hunting them takes planning, cooperation, and a lot of luck. These tracks are fresh, very fresh. The edges are still sharp, no collapse, no melt, no wind damage. Made this morning, probably within the last few hours. You look up, following the line they've drawn across the landscape, and far, very far, you can see movement. Dark shapes against white. Too far to count, too far to detail, but there, moving slowly, grazing as they go. Your father stands, looks at the others, doesn't say anything, doesn't need to. Everyone's thinking the same thing. This is opportunity, but opportunity takes time. You can't just run at a mammoth with a spear. Well, you can, but you'll die stupidly. You need strategy, numbers, preparation. One of the men jogs back toward camp, fast, to bring word. The others stay, keeping the herd in sight, marking their direction. You stay too, watching those distant shapes move like slow mountains across a white sea. Some scientists think Ice Age hunters drove mammoths off cliffs or into traps. Others argue that's too simplistic, that the hunting was more sophisticated, close quarters ambush with braced pikes, using the animal's own weight and momentum against it. You don't care about the debate. You just know it works when you do it right. And when you don't do it right, people die. The sun's fully overhead now, or as overhead as it gets this time of year. Still low, still angled. The herd's still moving, still distant. You're cold despite all your layers, feet starting to ache from standing in snow. But you wait. Patience is the hunter's first skill. Before strength, before speed. You wait and you watch and you learn what the world's willing to show you. Because the snow holds everything. And if you're careful, if you're patient, if you read it right, it'll tell you exactly how to survive one more day. The needle sits in your mother's hand, bone white and impossibly fine, threaded with sinew she's been chewing soft for the last hour. Her fingers are scarred, dozens of small nicks and punctures from years of this work, this slow, careful stitching that makes the difference between living and freezing. She's making you new mittens, and you're watching, trying to memorize every movement. "See here," she says, voice quiet, pointing to where two pieces of hide meet. Overlap, then pierce through both layers, small holes, close together. Pull tight. The sinew disappears into the leather, drawn flush. When it dries, it'll shrink further, seal the seam like it was never two pieces at all. No gaps, no place for wind to slip through. You nod. You've tried this yourself, made clumsy attempts that your father wore anyway, out of kindness or necessity or both. But watching her is different. She makes it look effortless. The way the needle slides through tough hide, the even tension she maintains, the rhythm of it. Pierce, pull, pierce, pull. Hours of this to make a single garment. Days, sometimes. Working by firelight when the sun's gone down and there's nothing else to do. The mittens taking shape in her lap are reindeer hide, fur turned inward, with a long cuff that'll tuck under your sleeve. She's fitting them exactly to your hands. Not too tight, not too loose. Too tight restricts blood flow and your fingers go numb. Too loose and air pockets form, breaking the insulation. It's mathematics, but mathematics she learned from her mother, who learned from hers. Passed down voice to voice and hand to hand across generations. Around you, the shelter's alive with small industry. Someone's scraping fat off a hide stretched on a frame, working a shaped stone back and forth with patient pressure. The fat comes off in pale curls, and it won't be wasted. It'll go into the fire later, fuel that burns hot and long, or get rendered for waterproofing. Another person's sewing boot soles, doubling the leather for wear, adding a layer of woven grass between for insulation. Everything's layered here, built up in careful stages, each one serving a purpose. A child, maybe 6, maybe 7, sits near the fire, practicing knots with lengths of sinew. Over, under, pull tight. Her tongue's between her teeth, concentration fierce. When she gets it right, her grandmother nods. When she gets it wrong, she's shown again. Patient, methodical. No one yells. Mistakes out here kill you, so you learn to make them inside, where they're fixable. Your mother holds up the nearly finished mitten, examines it against the firelight, checking for gaps she might have missed. The seams are perfect, almost invisible where the fur overlaps. She's used a specific stitch here, a technique historians argue about because it shows up in finds all across Ice Age Europe. Close, overlapping, waterproof. Some say it proves cultural exchange across vast distances. Others claim it's convergent evolution, people solving the same problem the same way because it's the only way that works. You don't care about the debate, you care that it works. She hands it to you. Try. You pull it on. The fur's soft against your skin, warm immediately, and the fit is perfect. Your fingers can move, curl, grip. But there's no extra space, no air gaps. The cuff reaches halfway to your elbow. You flex your hand and the leather moves with you, doesn't bind or restrict. Good, she says. Just that. High praise, in winter, where mistakes are expensive. You're wearing layers even inside the shelter. It's cold enough that breath fogs, even with the fire going. Closest to your skin is a tunic of soft hide, fur side in, tanned until it's supple. Over that, a heavier outer layer, fur side out, that breaks the wind. Your legs are wrapped similarly. Soft inner leggings, heavy outer trousers, both tied at the ankles to keep snow from creeping up. Around your waist, a belt with pouches hanging from it, dried meat, a fire kit, a knife. Tools you'd need if you got separated from the group, if something went wrong. Because things go wrong. Someone wanders off track in a whiteout, gets turned around, can't find their way back. Someone breaks through ice, soaks their clothes, has minutes to get dry or die. Someone's seam splits in a storm, wind cuts through, hypothermia takes them before they make it home. You've heard the stories. Everyone has. They're cautionary tales stitched into daily life. Your father enters the shelter, snow dusting his shoulders, shaking it off before it melts. He's carrying something, a bundle wrapped in hide, and he sets it near the fire carefully, unwraps it. Inside, a pile of hair pelts, white and thick, winter coat. He caught them in snares set days ago, checked them this morning. 4 hairs, cleaned and skinned, the meat already set aside for tonight's meal. He hands the pelts to your mother without speaking. She takes them, examines each one, checking for damage, for thin spots. These'll become something, a hat, maybe, or a liner for someone's boots. Nothing's wasted. Can't afford to waste. Someone else is working on a boot that split yesterday. Old sinew gave way, unraveling the sole from the upper. They've carefully pulled the stitches, removed the old thread, and now they're re-sewing with fresh sinew, taking their time, doing it right. Rushed work fails. Failed work kills. The eyed needle your mother uses is a marvel, really. Carved from bird bone, hollow and light, with a hole pierced through one end just big enough for sinew to pass through. Whoever invented this, whoever first thought to pierce a hole instead of notching a groove, changed everything. Suddenly you could pull thread through hide instead of just surface stitching. Suddenly you could make fitted clothes, tailored seams, garments that actually trapped heat efficiently. Some needles survive in the archaeological record, 30,000 years old, perfectly preserved. You wonder if the person who made them knew what they were creating, if they understood the magnitude. Probably not. Probably they were just solving a problem. How to sew better, how to stay warmer, how to survive. Same as you. Outside, wind's picking up. You can hear it now. A low moan around the shelter's edges, testing seams, looking for gaps. But the shelter holds. Hides lashed tight, weighted with stones, sealed with banked snow. Inside, the temperature's hovering somewhere above freezing. Not warm exactly, but survivable. The fire helps, but mostly it's the bodies. 12 people breathing and radiating heat into a small enclosed space. Group warmth. Another layer of insulation. Your mother finishes the second mitten, holds them both up, checking symmetry. They match. Perfect mirrors. She hands them over, and you pull them both on. Spread your fingers, test the movement. They're excellent. They'll keep you alive through work and travel, and cold that would strip flesh from bone in minutes. Thank you, you say quietly. She nods, already reaching for the next project. There's always a next project. Something to mend, something to make, something to improve. Winter demands constant maintenance. Gear wears out, seams split. Furs get wet, freeze, need replacing. You look around the shelter at everyone working, everyone contributing. This is survival too. Not the dramatic hunt, not the sudden crisis, but this. Slow, careful, methodical preparation. Making things that don't fail. Teaching children to tie knots that hold. Sewing seams that don't split. Someone's telling a story by the fire, voice low, and the children are listening. A tale about the time 3 hunters tracked a mammoth for 2 days through a blizzard and brought it down at the edge of a frozen lake. The details shift each telling, but the core stays the same. Patience, cooperation, respect for the animal. Listen and learn. You flex your fingers in the new mittens, feel the warmth building between fur and skin. Outside, winter waits, endless, patient, unforgiving. But you're not facing it naked. You're wrapped in knowledge, stitched into every seam, in techniques passed down across generations, in the simple, revolutionary genius of a bone needle with a hole pierced through. The cold's still there, still deadly, but you're dressed for it now. One careful stitch at a time. The fire's dying. You can see it in the way the flames are shrinking, pulling down toward the coals, losing their bright flicker. Someone needs to feed it, carefully, methodically, because fire isn't something you summon at will out here. Fire's precious. Fire's survival. And keeping it alive through winter is a skill that takes years to learn and seconds to fail at. You're on fire duty tonight, which means you're not sleeping much. Someone always is. You work in shifts through the darkness, feeding fuel, adjusting airflow, making sure the coals don't go cold. Because starting fire from scratch in winter is possible, yes, but hard, difficult, time-consuming. And if you fail, if your tinder's damp, or your hands are too cold to work the drill properly, people die while you're still trying. Better to never let it go out at all. You add wood carefully, small pieces first, dry and brittle, snapped from dead branches you gathered yesterday. They catch quickly, flames licking up, and you wait until they're established before adding anything larger. Too much at once smothers the fire. Too little, and it dies anyway. There's a balance, and you're learning it the same way you learn everything else. By watching, by trying, by failing in small ways, so you don't fail in large ones. The wood supply's stacked near the entrance. Nothing green, nothing wet. Everything's been dried for weeks, stored under cover, broken into manageable pieces. You burn through a shocking amount in a single night, and gathering it is a constant task. Every day someone's out collecting. Dead wood, dry dung when wood's scarce, anything that'll burn. You've learned to spot dead trees from a distance, standing grey and brittle, and you've learned to break them efficiently, using rocks and leverage, because metal axes are still thousands of years away. But wood's not the only fuel. There's bone. A pile of mammoth bones sits near the fire, white and massive, harvested from a kill weeks ago. Leg bones, ribs, vertebrae, all dried and ready. Bone burns different from wood, hotter, longer, with a thick, greasy smoke that smells like fat rendering. It's not pleasant, but it works. You've seen fires built entirely from bone during bad weather, when wood ran out. They kept people alive. You pick up a smaller bone, maybe a reindeer femur, and wedge it into the coals. It sits there, not catching immediately, just heating. Then, slowly, it begins to blacken, to smoke, and eventually a small flame appears along its length, blue-tinged, hot. The marrow inside heats and liquefies, feeding the fire from within. Clever, really. The animal provides meat, hide, sinew, tools, and even after all that, its bones give heat. Beside you, carefully wrapped in moss and positioned just close enough to the fire to stay warm, but not close enough to catch, sits the ember bundle. This is what you carry when you travel, when the band moves to a new camp, when you need to transport fire itself across distances. Someone showed you how to make it when you were young. Gather punk wood, rotted, crumbly, dry, or certain mushrooms that smoulder forever. Amadou fungus mostly, dried and prepared. You place a coal inside, wrap it in layers of moss and bark, seal it carefully. The coal smoulders, doesn't flame, just glows. Can last for days like this if you're careful, breathing gently, staying alive in its nest of tinder. Some debate exists about whether Ice Age people could reliably make fire, or if they mostly carried it from natural sources, lightning strikes, wildfires. But the evidence suggests they understood fire-making, hearths with specific arrangements, tools that look like drill components, the sophisticated control needed to heat-treat stone. You don't think about the debate. You just know your father can make fire with a drill and bow if he has to, spinning a hardwood shaft against softwood base until friction generates ember. You've seen him do it. Takes maybe 10 minutes if conditions are perfect, longer if they're not. But why bother if you never let it die? The flames are healthy now, dancing yellow and orange, throwing light across the shelter walls. Shadows move and shift, the hanging tools, the stacked supplies, the sleeping forms wrapped in fur. Everyone's breathing creates a rhythm, a soft collective sound beneath the fire's crackle. You feel the heat on your face, welcome and necessary, and you hold your hands out toward it, letting warmth soak into fingers that are always slightly cold. Someone coughs. The old woman, the one who knows stories going back beyond memory. She shifts in her sleep, pulls her furs tighter, settles again. You make sure the fire's positioned so the heat reaches her. The old and the young need it most, bodies that don't regulate temperature as well. The ban protects them, keeps them close to the fire, makes sure they eat enough fat to generate internal heat. Outside, wind's picked up. You hear it moaning around the shelter, a low, persistent sound that never quite stops. There's a particular quality to winter wind. It doesn't gust and fade like summer storms. It just blows, steady and cold and relentless, wearing at everything. The hide door flaps slightly, and you stand, move to it, check the ties. All secure. But you bank snow against the bottom edge anyway. Extra insulation, extra seal. Back at the fire, you notice the coals have built up, a thick bed of glowing red beneath the flames. This is the heart of it, what you're really maintaining. Coals hold heat longer than flames, provide steady warmth through the night. Come morning, someone will rake through them, find live ones, build the fire back up. As long as the coals stay hot, fire's never truly gone. You've heard stories about bands that lost their fire in winter, storms that scattered them, emergencies that left them unprepared, accidents that killed the embers. Without fire, you can survive, maybe days if you're lucky, if you find shelter, if you keep moving. But it's desperate, painful, and usually short. Fire's not optional. Fire's the difference between human and animal, between surviving winter and surrendering to it. There's a small lamp burning in the corner, seal fat in a shallow stone, soaked into twisted moss that serves as a wick. It gives barely any light, just a tiny flame, but it's enough to see by if you need to work on something detailed. Your mother made a pair of boots by lamplight last week, stitching through the long, dark hours because they were needed and daylight's too short to waste. The flame barely smoked, barely smelled, just burned steady and patient. You feed the fire again, another piece of wood, another bone. The wood catches fast, flames jumping. The bone smoulders slow, radiating heat. Together they'll burn for another hour before you need to add more. You settle into the rhythm of it, the dance of maintenance. Not too much, not too little. Constant attention, constant adjustment. Someone taught you a trick for judging fire temperature. Hold your hand at different heights above the coals and count how long you can stand it. Close to the coals, you can barely manage 2 seconds. Higher up, maybe 5. Different foods need different heats, and you learn to position cooking stones at the right level, roast meat at the right distance. Fire's not just present or absent, it's a spectrum, a tool you modulate and control. The night deepens. Outside, stars are probably out, bright and cold and impossibly distant. You don't see them from in here, but you know they're there. Same as they'll be in 20,000 years when someone else is staring up, wondering what it was like to live in the eternal winter. You tend the fire, feed it, keep it alive. Because if it dies, you might too. And that's a failure you can't afford. They're crossing the valley. You can see them now, not as distant shapes, but as individuals. Massive and real and moving with a kind of slow inevitability that makes your heart work overtime. Mammoths. 8 of them, maybe 10. Hard to count when they're bunched and overlapping, their shaggy fur making them look like moving hillsides. The band's been tracking this herd for 3 days, following their trail north, watching from high ground, waiting for the right moment. And this might be it. The valley's narrow here, funneled by low hills on either side, and the mammoths are following a path through it, probably a route they've used before, worn into the landscape by generations of migration. Predictable. That's what makes this possible. You're lying flat on cold ground, snow soaking through your outer layer, despite all the careful layering, watching with 10 others. Mostly hunters, men and women both, anyone strong enough and skilled enough to be here. Your father's beside you, silent, studying the herd with the same intensity he studies tracks, calculating, planning. The big female, someone whispers. Center left, see her? You do. She's massive, dwarfing the others, her tusks curved and yellowed with age. Probably the matriarch, the leader. Not the target. Too experienced, too dangerous. The one you want is smaller, a juvenile, maybe 5 or 6 years old, already taller than a man, but not yet fully grown. Big enough to provide food for weeks, small enough that your tactics might actually work. The juvenile's near the back of the group, trailing slightly, less cautious. Young, inexperienced, vulnerable. Your father makes a decision you can see in his posture, the way he shifts slightly, preparing. He gestures, silent hand signals everyone knows. Split, flank, wait. The group breaks into 2. Half move left, half right, staying low, using the terrain for cover. You go right with your father, crawling through snow that squeaks under your weight, praying the wind doesn't shift and carry your scent to the herd. Mammoths have excellent smell, good hearing, and if they spook, if they run, you'll never catch them. This only works if they stay calm, keep moving along their route, walk into a situation they don't recognize as a trap until it's too late. You crawl for what feels like forever, snow melting against your face, hands going numb despite the mittens. Finally, you reach position, a slight rise that overlooks the path the mammoths are following. The others are doing the same on the opposite side, invisible in the snow, waiting. everything depends on timing now. The herd's closer. You can hear them. The soft thud of massive feet in snow. The rumble of breath from trunks. A low vocalization that sounds almost like humming. They're talking to each other, communicating in ways you don't fully understand. The juvenile's still trailing, distracted, stopping occasionally to investigate something on the ground. Your father's preparing the pike, and this is the innovation, the technique that makes mammoth hunting survivable. It's not a throwing spear. You don't throw anything at a mammoth unless you want to die. This is a braced pike, a long, sturdy shaft with a large stone point, and you don't hold it, you plant it. He's checking the point, beautifully napped, leaf-shaped, edges sharp enough to cut yourself on. It's hafted to the shaft with sinew and pitch, wrapped and bound so it won't come loose. The shaft itself is maybe 10 feet long, thick as your wrist, the base sharpened to a point. This is what you drive into the ground, angling it forward, creating a fixed spear that doesn't move. Others are doing the same, setting pikes in the snow, positioning them at chest height for a mammoth, pointing them at the path the herd's following. The theory, proven by success, sometimes by failure, is simple. When the mammoth charges or runs, it impales itself. Its own weight and momentum drive the point deep. You don't need to be strong enough to pierce thick hide and fat. The mammoth does it for you. But first, you need to make it charge. The juvenile's almost level with the pikes now, maybe 30 feet away, completely unaware. The rest of the herd's ahead, moving steadily. This is the moment. Wait too long, you lose the opportunity. Move too soon, everything scatters. Your father stands. Just stands. Tall and sudden and wrong in the landscape. A predator shape where none should be. The juvenile sees him, stops. Its trunk lifts, testing the air, and you can see the moment it registers danger. A stiffening, a shift in posture. It trumpets, a high, sharp sound that makes your teeth hurt. Everything happens fast. The herd ahead reacts, turning, bunching together, protective. But the juvenile panics. Young, inexperienced, it doesn't retreat towards safety. It bolts sideways, trying to run past the threat, moving at speed now, and that's what you need. It's heading straight for the hidden pikes. Two hunters stand, revealing themselves, and the juvenile tries to turn, but it's moving too fast, too panicked. It hits the first pike. You hear the impact, a sound like a thick branch breaking, and the shaft bends, flexes, but holds. The point drives in. The mammoth screams. High and awful, and nothing like you expected. It's trying to pull away, but the pikes angle deep, the barbs catching, and every movement makes it worse. Other hunters are moving now, carefully, spears ready, approaching from the sides. Not to finish it yet, too dangerous. You wait. Let the pike do its work. Let the mammoth exhaust itself trying to fight a wound that won't release. It takes time. Longer than stories make it sound. The mammoth pulls and twists and eventually goes down to its knees, blood darkening the snow around it, breath coming in gasps. The herd's retreated, watching from a distance, trumpeting distress but not approaching. They know what death looks like. Finally, it's safe to move in. Spears find vital points, behind the shoulder, aiming for the heart and lungs, quick and merciful as you can make it. The mammoth shudders, falls to its side, breath slowing, stopping. Silence. Just wind and the distant sounds of the herd, moving away now, leaving one of their own behind. Nature's transaction, survival's cost. You stand there, breathing hard, hands shaking with adrenaline, looking at what you've brought down. It's massive up close, tons of muscle and fat and fur, more food than you can comprehend. This single animal will sustain your band for months. Meat, fat for fuel, hide for shelter. bones for tools and structure, sinew for thread, nothing wasted. Your father's checking the pike, examining where it held, where it bent, learning from this kill so the next one's better. Someone's already starting the butchering process. This'll take hours, maybe days. You'll camp here, process everything, transport what you can, cache the rest under snow. Someone claps your shoulder. You helped. You were part of this. First mammoth you've been present for, and it worked. Didn't always. People die doing this. Miscalculate, get too close. The mammoth charges the wrong way. But not today. Today, winter just got slightly more survivable. And in the snow, written in tracks and blood, is the story of how you fed your people through the eternal cold. One carefully planted pike at a time. As long as the coals stay hot, fire's never truly gone. You've heard stories about bands that lost their fire in winter, storms that scattered them, emergencies that left them unprepared, accidents that killed the embers. Without fire, you can survive maybe days if you're lucky, if you find shelter, if you keep moving. But it's desperate, painful, and usually short. Fire's not optional. Fire's the difference between human and animal, between surviving winter and surrendering to it. There's a small lamp burning in the corner, seal fat in a shallow stone, soaked into twisted moss that serves as a wick. It gives barely any light, just a tiny flame, but it's enough to see by if you need to work on something detailed. Your mother made a pair of boots by lamplight last week, stitching through the long dark hours because they were needed, and daylight's too short to waste. The flame barely smoked, barely smelled, just burned steady and patient. You feed the fire again, another piece of wood, another bone. The wood catches fast, flames jumping. The bone smolders slow, radiating heat. Together, they'll burn for another hour before you need to add more. You settle into the rhythm of it, the dance of maintenance. Not too much, not too little. Constant attention, constant adjustment. Someone taught you a trick for judging fire temperature. Hold your hand at different heights above the coals and count how long you can stand it. Close to the coals, you can barely manage 2 seconds. Higher up, maybe 5. Different foods need different heats, and you learn to position cooking stones at the right level, roast meat at the right distance. Fire's not just present or absent, it's a spectrum, a tool you modulate and control. The night deepens. Outside, stars are probably out, bright and cold and impossibly distant. The shelter's not like the summer ones, can't be. Summer you build with wood and hide, light and temporary, easy to abandon when it's time to follow the herds. Winter you build with what lasts, what insulates, what keeps death at a tolerable distance. You build with bones. The mammoth skeleton arcs above you, ribs and leg bones lashed together with hide strips and sinew, creating a framework bigger than anything you could make from wood alone. Massive femurs serve as posts, shoulder blades as walls, the skull itself, tusks still attached, positioned at the entrance like a gateway. It took days to construct, everyone working together, fitting bones like a puzzle only your ancestors knew how to solve. Over the bone framework, layers. First, hides. Mammoth, reindeer, whatever you have, stretched and lashed tight. Then a layer of sod and moss, torn up from ground that's not yet frozen solid, packed into gaps. Then another layer of hides. Then, finally, snow. You pile it on deliberately, bank it against the walls. Let it melt slightly and refreeze, creating an icy shell that wind can't penetrate. The result looks like a mound, a hill that grew where no hill should be. From a distance, you'd barely recognize it as human-made. Up close, the entrance gives it away. That mammoth skull, the carefully constructed doorway, the smoke rising from the hole at the top. Inside, it's warmer. Not warm, never warm, but survivable. The walls are lined with more hides, creating an air gap, another layer of insulation. The floors dug down slightly, using the earth itself as a windbreak, and it's covered in layers. Branches first for drainage, then dried grass, then hides, then the sleeping furs. You're building up from cold ground, trying to trap heat anywhere you can. The hearth sits in the center, ring of stones to contain it, smoke rising to the hole overhead. Most of the smoke anyway. Some of it hangs in the upper part of the shelter, thick and acrid, and you've learned to stay low where the air's clearer. Your eyes still water constantly. Everyone's eyes do. Smoke blind, some people go, eventually. Can't avoid it. But it's better than freezing. The structure's partially underground too, dug into the earth using natural insulation. Permafrost is a problem here. The ground's frozen solid year-round past a certain depth. But the top layer thaws slightly in summer, and you dig into that, hollowing out space, working around the permanently frozen substrate. The walls are reinforced with stacked bones, creating a double-thick barrier between you and the outside. You're sitting inside now, watching your uncle work on a section of wall that's developed a gap, a small crack where wind's found its way through. He's packing it with moss, stuffing it tight, then covering it with a piece of hide he's cutting to size. Careful, methodical. Gaps are death, even small ones. Wind finds them, exploits them, and suddenly you're losing heat you can't afford to lose. Around you, the shelter holds maybe 15 people comfortably, 20 if you're desperate. Right now, there's 12. The others are out checking snares, gathering firewood, maintaining the existence that takes constant work. You're on rest day, recovery from yesterday's hauling, when you help transport mammoth meat from a cache site. Your shoulders still ache. The ceiling's low enough that you can't stand fully upright in most places. Maybe 5 feet at the center where the smoke hole is, lower toward the edges. This is deliberate. Lower ceiling means less space to heat, means body warmth accumulates faster. You spend a lot of time sitting or crouching, and your legs have adapted, gotten used to the posture. Someone's cooking near the fire, boiling something in a skin bag. You can't boil water directly over flames. The hide would burn, but you can heat stones in the fire, then drop them into water-filled hide, and the water boils without destroying the container. It's slow, requires patience, but it works. Whatever's cooking smells like meat and fat, and dried herbs someone gathered last summer. Stew, basically, will feed everyone tonight. The bone house, because that's what it is fundamentally, will last for years if maintained. Some mammoth bone structures survive in the archaeological record for thousands of years. Circles of enormous bones marking where people weathered winters you can't imagine. Historians debate whether these were permanent settlements or seasonal camps, whether people lived in them year-round or just during the worst cold. You don't care about the debate, you care that it works. Storage pits line the outer edges, holes dug into the frozen ground, filled with food and covered. Natural freezers running constantly. You've got meat, fat, dried berries, cached plants. Enough to last months if you're careful, if nothing goes wrong, if the hunting stays decent. You check the supplies regularly, ration carefully, make sure everyone gets enough, but no one wastes. Outside, you can hear wind testing the structure, pushing against the bone walls, trying to find weakness. But the shelter holds. The bones are massive, the lashing is tight, the layers are thick. You've learned from generations of winter survival, techniques refined and passed down, and this structure represents thousands of hours of knowledge compressed into architecture. Someone's carved marks into one of the bones near the entrance. Notches, patterns, maybe counting something. Days? Moons? Kills? You're not sure. Could be decoration. Could be record keeping. Either way, it's human. This impulse to mark, to note, to leave evidence of your existence, pressed into the bones of something that was once alive. A child's playing in the corner. Quiet game with small carved figures. Mammoth, reindeer, human shapes whittled from scraps. Learning through play. Imagining hunts, migrations, survival scenarios. Adults encourage this. Play is practice. Practice is survival. Your uncle finishes patching the gap, tests it with his hand, feels for airflow. Satisfied, he sits back. The shelter's sealed again. Warm air stays in, cold air stays out, and the balance holds for another day. You look up at the rib bones arcing overhead, massive curves that once held the lungs and heart of an animal that walked the frozen earth. Now they hold you, protect you, keep you alive through cold that would kill you in hours. There's poetry in that maybe, using death to shelter life, building homes from the bones of what you've hunted. Or maybe it's just survival, practical, necessary. Either way, you're grateful for the mammoth that gave you this structure, grateful for the hands that built it, grateful for the knowledge that lets you sit here, warm enough to survive, while outside the eternal winter blows and blows and blows. The bone house stands, and so do you. The meat's running low. You can see it in the way your father portions it out. Smaller pieces than last week, cut thinner, rationed tighter. Everyone gets enough to survive, but no one's getting full. That feeling of satisfaction after eating? Memory now. You eat, your stomach stops hurting quite as much, but the edge never fully goes away. This is the hunger moon, the time when winter stops being an adventure and starts being a test. When the fat reserves you built up from autumn hunting start to show gaps. When you count supplies compulsively and realize the numbers don't quite add up the way you'd hoped. Outside, it's been snowing for 3 days. Not a blizzard, just constant, steady snowfall that piles up relentlessly. No hunting in this. No checking distant snares. No travel. You stay inside, conserve energy, and wait it out. Which means you're burning through stored food without being able to replenish it. The cache pit's still got supplies. You checked yesterday, crawling through snow to dig down and verify. Dried meat, frozen solid. Rendered fat in skin bags, precious calories. Dried berries and tubers from last summer, shriveled and tough, but edible. There's enough. Probably. If the storm breaks soon. If hunting picks up after. If nothing goes wrong. Lots of ifs in winter. You're sitting near the fire, trying to make warmth substitute for food, but it doesn't work that way. Your body needs fuel, fat, protein, anything with calories. Heat helps you not freeze, but it doesn't stop the slow erosion of stored energy that makes your clothes fit looser, your face sharper. Your thoughts sometimes drift and scatter. Someone's carving near you, making a new spear point from a piece of flint. Careful percussion, shaping it slowly. Gives hands something to do, keeps the mind occupied. Sitting idle is somehow harder than working, even when you're trying to conserve energy. The brain doesn't like stillness when survival's uncertain. Your mother passes around strips of dried meat, thin, tough, requiring serious chewing. You take yours, make it last, chew until your jaw aches. The flavor's intense, concentrated, salty from the preservation process. You try to make your mind focus on that, on taste and texture, instead of on the fact that this strip would have been twice as thick a month ago. The children are quieter than usual. They feel it, the tension, the careful rationing, the way adults exchange glances over their heads. Kids are perceptive like that. They know when something's wrong, even if no one says it. An old debate exists about Ice Age nutrition, whether people were constantly on the edge of starvation or relatively well-fed. The evidence suggests both, depending on season and luck. Good hunts, you thrive. Bad luck, you survive. Really bad luck, you don't. The margin between those states is thinner than you'd think. You've got fat, at least. That's crucial. Rendered mammoth fat, stored in a skin bag, scooped out in small amounts. Pure calories, dense and sustaining. Your mother adds a fingerful to the stew she's making, watches it melt and spread, enriching the broth. Fat keeps you warm from the inside, helps your body generate heat. Lean meat without fat can actually starve you. Too much protein, not enough energy. Rabbit starvation, people will call it someday. You just know you need fat to survive. The fire's burning lower than usual, conserving wood too. Everything's rationed now. You wear extra layers instead, wrap yourself in sleeping furs during the day, share body heat. The shelter's colder than normal, but not dangerously so. Just uncomfortable. Persistently, exhaustingly uncomfortable. Outside, wind shifts, and you hear it clearly. The moan around the bone walls, the soft patter of snow against hide. It's not loud. Winter wind rarely is out here. Just constant, unending. And the snow keeps falling, piling higher, making everything harder. Your father's counting on his fingers, quiet calculation. Days of food left versus probable storm duration versus recovery time after. You can see him working the math, trying different scenarios. He catches you watching, doesn't smile, just nods. We're managing, the gesture says. We've done this before, and you have. Last winter hit hard around this same time. Storms that locked you inside for 8 days straight. Supplies that dwindled to almost nothing before the weather broke. You remember the fear that time, the way adults tried to hide it but couldn't quite. Everyone survived, but barely. Came out of it thinner, weaker, with stories about the winter that tested them. This isn't that bad, not yet, but it could be. Someone's telling a story to the children, something about a clever hunter who outwitted a snow fox, got its thick winter pelt. The kids listen, distracted from hunger, and you listen too. Stories have calories of a different kind. They sustain something that isn't quite physical, but still necessary. Hope, maybe. Or just the reminder that people have survived before, will survive again. The stew's ready. Your mother portions it out carefully. Equal shares, measured. Nobody getting shorted, but nobody getting extra. You cup your bowl, feel the warmth through the bark container, and sip slowly. It's thin, more broth than substance, but it's hot, and it's something. You make it last. Around you, everyone's eating in silence. Just the sound of sipping, chewing, the fire's soft crackle. When you're rationing, meals become meditation. You pay attention, appreciate each bite, make it count. A child asks, "When will the snow stop?" Their mother says, "Soon, tomorrow maybe, or the day after." She doesn't know. No one does. But the answer's comforting, and comfort matters when everything's uncertain. You finish your stew, scrape the bowl, lick the spoon. Not a drop wasted. Your stomach's still not full, won't be full for weeks probably, but the edge is dulled. You can sleep now without hunger keeping you awake. The fire's dying down. Someone adds a small bone, just enough to keep coals alive through the night. The shelter darkens and people shift into sleeping positions, wrapping furs tight, conserving warmth and energy. You close your eyes, listen to breathing, to wind, to the soft sound of snow accumulating outside. Tomorrow the storm might break. Might. And then you can hunt, can replenish, can eat properly again. Or it might keep snowing, and you'll ration tighter, and you'll manage. Because this is the hunger moon. This is what winter does. Tests you, pushes you to edges, makes you understand that survival isn't guaranteed. It's earned, daily, through careful planning and community and sheer persistent will. But you're still here, still breathing, still warm enough. And that counts for something. In winter, that counts for everything. The ice is melting. Not everywhere, not even most places, but in small patches you can see it. Drips from the shelter's edge in afternoon sun, softening around stones. The river making sounds it hasn't made in months, the gurgle and rush of water moving instead of sitting silent under frozen weight. Spring, actual spring. Not the false thaw that happens sometimes midwinter, tricking you into hope before another storm hits. Real spring, the kind you can feel in the air, in the lengthening days, in the way animals are moving differently, migrating, emerging, changing. And it means work, so much work. Because summer's brief here, maybe 3 months, maybe 4 if you're lucky. And in that time, you have to gather everything you'll need to survive the next winter. Every plant, every berry, every resource that only exists when the ground's not frozen. It's a race against time, and the clock's already running. You're out in what passes for sunlight, still not warm exactly, but warmer than it's been. The snow's retreating in patches, revealing ground that's muddy and uncertain. Permafrost beneath means the top layer thaws, but doesn't drain well, creating bogs and wet areas that'll stay spongy all summer. Your boots sink with each step, and you move carefully, testing weight before committing. Your mother's with you, and 2 others, all carrying baskets woven from willow. Fresh willow, cut yesterday from branches that are finally flexible again after months of brittleness. You're gathering plants, specifically roots. She's teaching you to recognize them. Small shoots emerging from mud, easy to overlook if you don't know what you're seeing. But these roots, tubers really, are dense with calories, and they store well if dried properly. You dig carefully with a pointed stick, working around the root, trying not to damage it. When it comes free, it's the size of your thumb, pale and firm. 1 root doesn't seem like much, but you'll dig hundreds today. Everyone will. And when dried, they'll supplement your diet next winter. Provide carbohydrates when meat's all you have. Leave some, your mother reminds you, for next year. Sustainability before anyone has a word for it. Take too much, the plant doesn't recover. The resource disappears, you starve later. So you take some, leave some. Manage the landscape like a garden you didn't plant. Birds are everywhere, return from wherever they went for winter, nesting in scrub and rocks. Their eggs are food, rich and perfect, and you collect carefully. Not all of them, just some. Leave enough that the birds still reproduce, still come back next year. You're working in patches of green, actual green, the first you've seen in 8 months. Grass pushing up through mud, moss on rocks, bright and living. Tiny flowers in sheltered spots, purple and yellow and impossibly delicate. You don't stop to appreciate them, exactly, no time. But you notice. How could you not? Colour returning to a world that's been white and grey since before you can clearly remember. Someone's tracking a reindeer herd at higher elevation. They're migrating north now, following the thaw, and your band will follow eventually. Not yet. First, you gather, then you move. Summer's about motion, following resources, staying mobile. Winter's about stillness, hunkering down, surviving in place. 2 different survival strategies, alternating with the seasons. The work's exhausting. Your back aches from bending, digging, sorting. Your hands are filthy, mud under nails, staining skin. But it's good exhaustion, productive, because each basket filled is future survival secured. You dig until the baskets are full, then head back to camp, already planning tomorrow's gathering site. Back at camp, the drying racks are up. Frames made from bone and wood, hides stretched across them. You spread the roots out, let sun and air do their work. They'll shrivel, concentrate, become hard and shelf stable. Won't taste great next winter, but they'll keep you alive, and that's all that matters. Someone else is processing fish. The river's running, ice broken up, and fish are moving. Nets made from sinew and plant fiber stretch across narrow sections, catching them as they migrate. You've pulled up dozens, small and large, and now they're being gutted, split, hung to dry. Protein you can store, fat you can render, bones you can grind for tools or fertilizer. The camp's completely transformed. Where winter was about huddling and conserving, summer's about spreading out, working constantly, covering ground. Shelters are lighter, temporary structures that can be abandoned when you move. Tools are everywhere, processing, preparing, making what you'll need. Everyone's busy from dawn until well past dark, sleeping only when exhaustion forces it. A child runs past, laughing, chasing something. Maybe a hare, maybe nothing. Just running because they can. In winter, you don't run, you conserve. But now there's energy to spare. Calories coming in faster than you burn them, and children revert to being children instead of small survival units. You're gathering firewood too. Dead trees, dry branches, everything you can find and transport. Won't use it now, but you'll cache it, cover it, keep it dry for when autumn comes and wood starts getting scarce again. Always thinking ahead, always preparing for the return of cold. Berries are weeks away still, they need more warmth, but you're scouting the bushes, noting where they're flowering, planning harvest routes. Blueberries, crowberries, whatever grows in this harsh climate. You'll pick them when they're ripe, eat some fresh, dry the rest. Vitamin C, sugar, fiber, necessary. Someone's found a bee's nest, wild honey, rare and precious. They're harvesting it carefully, dealing with stings, bringing back honeycomb that's pure golden energy. You'll ration it through winter, tiny amounts, making it last. Sugar's rare enough to be magical. The work continues, day after day. Dig, gather, process, store. Your body adapts, muscles that atrophy during winter's stillness rebuilding, skin darkening from constant sun exposure, hands toughening from endless labor. You're transforming from winter mode to summer mode, and it's exhausting and exhilarating and absolutely necessary. Because winter will come back. It always does. The eternal winter isn't truly eternal, just long enough to kill you if you're unprepared. So you prepare. Gather everything green, dry everything edible, store everything possible. And when the first frost comes, months from now, when the days start shortening and the cold returns, you'll be ready. Not comfortable, not safe, but ready. And in this world, that's the closest thing to victory you'll ever know. The fire's different tonight. Bigger, brighter, fed with wood instead of rationed carefully. This is gathering fire. Everyone's here, the whole band, sitting in a rough circle while flames throw light and shadows dance on faces. You're warm, actually warm. Not just not freezing, but genuinely comfortable. It's a feeling you'd almost forgotten. Someone's telling the story of the first winter. Not this winter, the winter, the one that started it all, when the cold came and never left. It's a story you've heard before, everyone has, but you listen anyway, because the details shift with each telling, and because listening is how knowledge transfers here. No writing, no records, just voice and memory and the repetition that embeds things deep enough to carry forward. The sun moved south, the elder says, voice rough but clear. Kept moving. Didn't stop where it should have, and the ice followed. The children lean forward, wide-eyed, even though they know what comes next. There's something about fire and darkness and old voices that makes stories feel true in ways daytime can't match. Everything died, the elder continues. Everything green. And the animals moved, searching, and we moved with them. Learned to hunt the cold. learned to wear it, became people of ice. It's mythology, probably, or history, or both. No one's sure anymore where the line is, but it doesn't matter. What matters is the lesson buried in the narrative. Adapt or die. Move or starve. Learn or freeze. Someone else picks up the thread. A hunter, middle-aged, scarred. The mammoth taught us shelter, he says. Gave us bones when trees wouldn't grow. We honor them by using everything. Waste nothing. Remember. Heads nod. Children repeat. Waste nothing. Remember. This is education. Survival compressed into phrases simple enough to memorize. Passed voice to voice across generations. You're learning not just what to do, but why. Not just techniques, but values. Respect for prey, gratitude for what you kill. Understanding that you're part of a system, not above it. Your mother speaks next, quieter. The needle saved us. Fine stitches, fitted clothes. Before that, we froze. After, we lived. Someone holds up a needle, bone carefully carved, passed down from grandmother to mother to daughter. An heirloom, a tool, a symbol. This tiny object changed human history, and everyone here knows it. The stories continue, small ones, personal ones. The time someone fell through ice and was pulled back. The hunt that went wrong but ended right. The winter storm that tested everyone, and the decision to share the last food equally instead of hoarding. Each story's a lesson. Cooperation matters. Observation matters. Persistence matters. Someone starts singing, wordless, rhythmic, and others join. It's not music the way you'd recognize later in history. No instruments except hands clapping, feet stomping. Just voices rising and falling, creating patterns in the air. It's hypnotic, communal. You feel it in your chest, in your bones. This shared vibration that connects everyone sitting here. The singing fades, the fire crackles. Someone tosses more wood on, extravagant, wasteful almost. But tonight's special. Tonight's about being together, about reinforcing bonds that survival depends on. Because here's what you understand, sitting in this circle. You cannot survive winter alone. Impossible. You'd freeze, starve, go mad from isolation. You need other people, for labor, for knowledge, for the basic fact that bodies together generate more heat than bodies apart. Community isn't optional, it's survival infrastructure. The old woman who coughs speaks now, voice thin but steady. I've seen 60 winters, she says, maybe more, lost count. 60 is ancient here. Most people don't make 40. And everyone taught me something. The children wait. So do the adults. Winter doesn't care, she says. Doesn't hate you, doesn't love you, just is. You survive by caring for each other. That's the only thing that matters. Silence. The kind that settles heavy, that means people are thinking, absorbing. Then someone laughs, breaks the moment intentionally, shifts the mood. Starts telling a funny story about a hunt where everything went ridiculously wrong, but somehow still worked. People relax, laugh, add their own versions. Humor's survival too, keeping spirits up through endless cold. You look around the circle, faces illuminated by firelight, everyone fed, warm, alive. This moment, right now, is what you're working toward. Not individual survival, collective survival, making sure everyone here makes it through another cycle. Historians argue about Ice Age social structures. Were they egalitarian, hierarchical? How did they handle conflicts, make decisions, distribute resources? The evidence is ambiguous, but sitting here, you know the truth your bones understand. Everyone contributes, everyone receives, and leadership comes from knowledge and experience, not force. The old ones teach, the young ones learn, the strong ones hunt, the skilled ones make, The clever ones plan. Everyone has a role, and everyone's role matters. The fire burns lower. People start drifting towards sleep. Children first, curled against parents, then others, one by one. But the fire stays lit. Someone will tend it through the night, keeping the clan fire alive, the heart of the band. You sit a bit longer, watching flames, thinking about the stories you've heard, the knowledge transferred, the invisible web of information that lets humans survive in places that should kill them. This is how you fight the eternal winter. Not just with tools and shelter and careful rationing, with stories, with community, with the accumulated wisdom of everyone who came before, distilled down to its essence and passed forward. You're part of that chain now, learning, remembering, preparing to pass it on. The fire crackles, the night's cold presses in at the edges, but inside this circle, you're safe. For now, that's enough. The sound wakes you. Not loud, quiet actually, but wrong somehow, different. You lie in your sleeping furs, eyes closed, listening, trying to identify what pulled you from sleep. Then you hear it again, a crack, sharp, distant, followed by something that sounds like grinding, like the earth shifting. Ice. The river ice is breaking. You sit up, careful not to wake anyone else. The shelter's dark except for the fire's glow, banked coals maintained through the night. Everyone's still asleep, breathing softly, buried in furs. But you're awake now, alert, and you move to the entrance quietly. Outside, the world's transforming. It's still dark, pre-dawn, stars fading in the east. But the temperature's different. Not warm exactly, but warmer. Above freezing maybe, and you can hear it. Water moving. The river, locked solid for months, is breaking up. Ice sheets grinding against each other, cracking under their own weight, beginning the slow, violent process of returning to liquid. Spring. Real spring. The kind that sticks. You stand there, breath fogging less than it did yesterday, listening to the river wake up. Another crack. A groan. The sound of something massive yielding to inevitable change. By tomorrow, maybe the day after, the river will be flowing again. Open water. Fish moving. The landscape fundamentally altered. Behind you, others are stirring. Someone exits the shelter, stands beside you. Your father. He listens too, doesn't speak, just nods. He hears it, knows what it means. The eternal winter is ending. Not forever, it'll return, it always does. But for now, for the next few months, the ice retreats. The cold eases. The world remembers how to be alive instead of frozen. Lights growing in the east. Not sunrise yet, but the promise of it. The sky shifts from black to deep blue to something lighter, and details emerge from darkness. The landscape that's been white for 8 months is starting to show other colours. Brown earth where snow's melted, grey rock, the dark line of the river where ice is breaking up. Birds call, ravens probably, or something similar. Sounds you haven't heard in months. They're back, or they never left, but were silent through winter, and now they're announcing the change. Your father speaks quietly. We move soon, follow the herds north. You nod. Summer migration, following reindeer and mammoth to their grazing grounds, staying mobile, hunting and gathering as you go. Leaving the bone house behind, you'll return next winter, or someone will. The structure will stand, waiting, ready. More people emerge from the shelter. Everyone's hearing it now, feeling it. The shift, the turning of seasons. There's excitement, cautious and controlled, because everyone knows better than to celebrate too early. False springs happen, late storms happen. Nothing's certain until it's past. But still, this feels real. This feels like the genuine end of winter's grip. Someone starts checking supplies, calculating what you have versus what you'll need for the journey north. Others are preparing tools, testing spears, making sure everything's ready to move. There's energy in the camp, purposeful and directed. You look at the sky, properly light now, clouds breaking up, revealing blue underneath. Actual blue. Sunlight coming, the kind that might actually warm you. You've lived through another winter. Everyone has. Some years that's not true. People get sick, accidents happen, hunger takes the weakest. But this year, this winter, everyone made it. And that's worth something. Worth everything, maybe. The river groans again. Chunks of ice the size of boulders are moving now, pushed by current you can't see but can hear. The grinding's constant, not loud, just persistent. The sound of a force that's been patient for months, finally getting to move again. You think about the people who came before you. Generations of them, surviving in this cold, passing down knowledge bit by bit, teaching their children how to stitch seams that don't leak wind, how to read tracks, how to make fire and keep it alive, how to build shelter from bones and hunt animals that outweigh them by tons, how to ration food and tell stories and work together because working together is the only thing that works. You're part of that now, carrying knowledge forward, learning so you can teach, surviving so you can help others survive. The sun breaks the horizon, actual sun, bright and impossibly orange, spilling light across white landscape. It's beautiful. Briefly, quietly beautiful. Your mother appears beside you, hands you a piece of dried meat. Breakfast. You take it, chew slowly, watching the sunrise. She's watching too. Everyone is. Another one, she says softly. Just that. Another winter survived. Another spring earned. You nod. The river keeps cracking, ice keeps breaking, and somewhere to the north, herds are moving, migrating, following ancient patterns written into their biology. And you'll follow them, as your people always have, moving through a landscape that's brutal and beautiful and barely survivable. But you will survive. You'll use the needle and the pike and the bone house and the cached food and the careful planning. You'll work together, share knowledge, tell stories by fire. You'll adapt and endure and persist through cold that wants to erase you. And next winter, when the cold returns, because it will return, it always does, you'll be ready. Not comfortable, not safe, but ready. The sun climbs higher. The ice breaks faster. Water's visible now, dark and flowing beneath fractured sheets. Spring's here, brief and precious and hard-won. You breathe deep. Let the slightly warmer air fill your lungs. Feel alive in ways winter sometimes made difficult. And then you turn, head back to camp, start preparing for the journey ahead. Because winter's ending, and there's work to do. The fire's almost out now, just embers glowing soft in darkness. You're warm under your furs, warm enough anyway, listening to the river break up in the distance. That grinding sound's gentler now, farther away, like the earth settling into new rhythms. Someone's breathing deeply nearby, already asleep or close to it. The shelter's quiet except for those small sounds. Breath, the soft pop of a coal, the wind testing the walls and finding them solid. You've walked with them now, the Ice Age hunters. Felt what they felt. Cold that tests every seam. Hunger that makes you count each bite. The weight of knowledge passed hand to hand through generations. You've seen how they survived, not just with tools, but with each other. Communities huddled around fires, sharing food when it ran low, teaching children to stitch and track and read the endless snow. It wasn't romantic, wasn't easy, but they did it. Day after day, winter after winter, they endured. And something in that endurance matters, doesn't it? Knowing that people survived things that seem impossible, that they looked at an eternal winter and decided not to surrender, that they invented needles and pikes and bone houses and all the small genius that lets humans live in places that should kill them. The river's quieting now, or maybe you're just drifting, letting the sound fade into background as your breathing slows. Either way, it's peaceful. That's the word, peaceful. Here in the dark, knowing the long cold is finally breaking. You're safe, you're warm. The winter you just walked through, you don't have to survive it. You only had to imagine it, feel it, understand it. And now you can let it go. Let the hunters rest. Let the ice recede. Let the stories settle into that place where history lives, waiting for someone else to listen. The embers pulse once, twice, fading to darkness. The shelter's almost invisible now, just a warm space in the night. And outside, somewhere far away, spring is coming, slow but certain, the way seasons always do. Your eyes are heavy, your breath's even. The cold can't reach you here. So rest, let the eternal winter fade. You survived the story. That's enough.